The last 2 weeks or so, our youth have embarked on demonstrations, which for the length of time has been generally peaceful, tag and SARS, by which they have been expressing their grievances against police brutality and demanding for changes and reforms in the system. In response, the federal government has apologized and has promised to look into the matter and take action. The state governors have not been left out. They have responded promptly by acknowledging the genuine grievances of the youth, and the Inspector General of Police has also been quite decisive. All these steps show that some level of goodwill and the acknowledgement that the grievances of the youth are being taken seriously. However, and notwithstanding these gestures, the demonstrations continued, consequences of which it began to cause serious discomfort to citizens and the country. In the process, it gave opportunities for criminal elements to penetrate an otherwise peaceful movement. The hijacking of the protests by criminals have resulted into violence, destruction of government and private properties, criminal release of prisoners, and the lynching and burning of policemen and some innocent persons. These developments is causing serious concern to all of us, and if care is not taken, it might lead the country to a point of no return. For this reason, I'm appealing and calling for a halt to give peace a chance for dialogue. I'm appealing to our youth who have strongly and clearly made their points to withdraw from the streets and prepare for dialogue. I am equally appealing to Mr. President to continue addressing the grievances expressed by the youth and lay out the program that meets and addresses the objective of the protest.
Former Head of State Abdulsalami Abubakar with his advice to the country and the president moving forward. But yes, the president did eventually address the country yesterday, as everyone saw. But today we're joined by two gentlemen to kickstart today. Tunde Bankantini, a member of the APC and also a member of Isaleko Descendants Union of Lagos. He joins us via Zoom. Then we also have Oladimeji Fabi, who is a member of the PDP and also has been several members, been member of several committees for the party's processes of selecting different candidates in different states. Good morning and thank you for joining us as well today. Well, lots of people wanted the president to speak, and now he has spoken. Mr. Fabi, let me start with you. From your perspective and the content of the president's speech, saying, listen, above all else, I have heard the voices of the youths. What kind of impression do you get from that? But having said that, isn't it time for everyone to then say, look, okay, he has said he has heard us. It leaves them with no choice than to say, all right, well said or not.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Chamberlain. First and foremost, I'd like to say that that speech is coming a little too late, but it's never bad. We've expected that this would have come earlier than now, but unfortunately it didn't come as when Nigerians expected, when perhaps the speech would have assuaged the pain of Nigerians, it would have appeased, the frustrations of the youth. I didn't see anything very serious in that speech. It was grossly deficient in what I call color of empathy. It was grossly deficient in what I call sympathy and compassion. And one would have expected that Mr. President would do more, would do better. You can see the reaction You can see the fallout, you know, after the statement yesterday. It lacks that candor that can appease the pains of Nigerians, the pains of the youth, and the agitations of our people. Isn't it disturbing that there was no mention of the gruesome killing, murder, massacre of our ever-vibrant, ever-conscious, Nigerian youths that were killed in Lekki, at Lekki in Lagos. That unfortunate incident will continue to live in our memories for a very, very long time. And then again, I was taken aback because the speech did not even mention the state of anarchy that is prevailing in the country at this moment. These are serious issues that one would have expected Mr. President will adequately address yesterday in that speech. It's also very, to me as a president, as a Nigerian, very insulting for Mr. President to be calling our digital age youth, so-called protesters, and rather it was promising them all these what I call analog and archaic economic measures, and that is not what we expected from Mr. President. We've heard about almost of these programs in the past, and they are still subject, to what people think about them. What have they achieved about this program? These are programs, all the programs that the President was touting yesterday, were things that ordinarily Nigerians are aware about. And then people are even questioning the successes of this program.
We'll come to that. We'll come to some of those issues you mentioned, but I just need to get the opening. But let me equally get that of Mr. Tunde Bankantini. Well, you have heard him. He says that, well, certain things were left out which ought to have been there, even though he did say, I've heard your cry. Do you share the same view?
Well, good morning, Lagos. Right. First of all, I want to say something clearly. This is not about party politics. What the president has said yesterday, do you expect the president to come out immediately without getting briefed? Along the line, the youth clearly, he said it clearly, we will listen to you, we will take up your demands. And when he came out, the first thing he said yesterday was that I spoke to my service chiefs, to my security team. That was the first thing he said. And he said clearly, we will hear you loud and clear. And for God's sake, these are our children. I don't see why we should always play politics with everything. What should be the foremost in our mind is to be very soothing and to be very sincere with our kids. They've done so well. I want to say to the youth, we are proud of you. Africa is proud of you. You've shown the world what you are made of. A peaceful protest, a very peaceful protest, non-violent. You carried on for 2 weeks until the government got it wrong. When I'm talking government here, I'm not blaming it on party politics. So I want my friend in Abuja to stop playing party politics with it. The president came out and spoke President of Federal Republic of Nigeria, not APC president, not PDP president. That is my opening statement for now.
All right. So, Mr. Fabi, now that statement, the speech by the president, well, yes, you have said that it should have come earlier. Of course, a lot of people were thinking he should have spoken earlier, but then being in that position, if you look at the content of the speech, where he did say, look, we accepted the demands, we're continuing work on the demands, but we also did see how the protest started and how it degenerated as a result of certain elements that infiltrated. No one will be happy with that kind of scenario. So, but even he identified that, look, there were certain persons who hijacked it. So if he made reference to those people when he says so-called, in that context, wasn't he right?
Well, Chamberlain, thank you very much. Let me first clear the impression of my brother in Lagos. This is not about politics. As you can see, my party has never done anything in regards to, they're just appealing to the youth to sheath their swords and come to the negotiation table. So that is that. Let me, the speech of Mr. President, I tell you, and I still maintain that it's not inspiring at all. And I still maintain that as a Nigerian and not as even a member of the party, as my brother is trying to make it look like. And we know what these people do. We saw that I mean, as the protest was going on, there were a lot of attempts to give it a coloration or ethnic coloration, to give it a political coloration. And I thank God for leadership from my party that they didn't even involve in this. Rather, they were rather appealing to the youth to do the needful. That their protest, like everybody has agreed, is genuine. And now, no world leader, let me tell you, and no responsible leader that is alive to his responsibility will run the issue on this protest the way the government have run it. And I say this, no parents will talk like that. No parents will do that. And let me just quickly make this known. In fact, Senator Shehu Sani clearly, captured the essence in one of his tweets yesterday. And he said, you people are asking for speech, and you got the speech. Now you are speechless. He captured the essence of that speech yesterday. Nigerians were expecting something more, something bigger, something that can actually assuage the pains of Nigerian youth and the entire Nigerians. You can see opinion leaders, stakeholders coming out to say, Mr. President, talk. You can see that speech was a forced presidential speech that was bereaved of affection, that was bereaved of compassion, that was bereaved of hope and inspiration. No confidence. Because Nigerian youth have already lost confidence in the leadership of this country as we speak. These are the things that are happening, and we should face that. This is about Nigeria. This is not about PDP. This is not about APC. One of the people they killed in Lagos was very known to me, and I feel so bad about it. All those families of the people, they are still there mourning of those that were killed, gruesomely murdered, were there still mourning. What has government done about it? What has the federal government done about it? If the government had lived up to federal government had lived up to its expectation, we would have gotten to this place. We would have gotten to this point. Those Minister, that you said,
just a minute.
Mr. President may be calling so-called protesters. Perhaps to him they are.
Okay,
but we know that the original agitators, the original protesters.
The thing about this is this,
they're not the ones analyzing things.
Just hang on. Let me just bring this in. Now, yes, a lot of people look to the president. Naturally, he's the president, he's the leader of the country. But talk about the subnationals, the governors. Look at the states that declared curfew. Now, when curfew was declared in those states, naturally, you expect that, okay, they've got this. They have it all covered, so there will be no more violence. Things will turn out peacefully. So when well-meaning people, of course, as trying to obey the curfew, went back home, you saw what happened in those other states. So shouldn't the state governors also take the flak for this one? Why did you declare curfew, yet violence broke out?
State governments equally have responsibilities. And let me tell you something that is very fundamental. Nigerians have lost trust. They've lost confidence in their leaders at federal, both at the state. Okay, look at most of the states that have declared, that has imposed curfew, like you said. Look at your state, for instance. How did Governor Seyi Makinde do it? How did he do it? That we don't have all of this that are happening in Lagos that are happening in every other place. How did he do it? So what I'm saying is that when people have lost trust in your leadership, when they've lost confidence in this is what you get. Again, when you are not awake to your responsibilities, when you are supposed to nip the crisis in the bud, you didn't do that, this is what you get. That is my point. So we don't enjoy this false presidential speech that all the rest of the world has to be calling before Mr. President can make statements that would douse the tension. So for me, it is my hope that after making this speech, the youth of Nigeria, the Nigerians in general, would be able to have the mind to queue behind this. We need peace in this country. We need unity in this country. This is not about South, this is not about North, this is not about region, this is not about party politics. This is about Nigeria as it concerns all of us. I can't fly out of Abuja. I'm supposed to be in Lagos. I can't fly. It has affected my economy. What I'm saying is this thing has ripple effect. It has a lot of effect on what we do on daily basis in this country. So our government must be able to rise up and wake up to their responsibilities. When they do this, there'll be peace. Let's bring in
Mr. Bankantoni. So, Mr. Bankantoni, well, talk about subnationals now, because there are huge questions about all of this. Is it that they had their hands tied? How do you think that states got it wrong?
Well, from Lagos, where the real protest started, peaceful, well coordinated, well organized. And when they started, the governor of Lagos State addressed them. President spoke about them. Everyone commended them, and we still do. And to refer to my brother Fabi in Abuja, the president never used the word so-called protesters with regarding to our kids. Let's get something clear. Our eyes are wide open. We are not stupid people. We knew who started this protest. There is no way you could ever compare those protesters to the hoodlums that came in later. I will tell you without a doubt, one thing to start with, I feel so bad, I feel pained, I feel terrible what happened on Tuesday night. The government have their own faults, they have their own shortcomings. I would say that it's got nothing to do with party politics. The government have their own faults. And another terrible thing is that may the soul of those who died, may their soul rest in peace. And may their parents and loved ones be consoled. Because it's sad, it's very sad, it's very, very painful what happened on Tuesday night. Of course, government have their faults. Look at what happened in Oba of Lagos Palace, the king of Lagos. It is terrible. And I'm still upset that the government of Lagos State has come out to address, to give interviews 3 times. He has not made reference to that. That was a sacrilege. That was an abomination. No matter what you take from there. Are we going to? And the president even mentioned that in his own speech. Our governor never did. And another point is that I'm not saying here on APC or PDP. So I'm not, Mr. Fabi, it is not something to play party politics with. The government of Lagos State represents everyone in Lagos State. And the governor started well. He tried. He did all he could do. But somewhere along the line, something went wrong. Because that Tuesday night, it is terrible. That was the day the governor called the curfew at noon for 4 p.m. Later, by 6 or 7 o'clock, we heard there's a change of time. I could tell you, I was rushing home to get away before 4 o'clock. I had an accident just to obey my governor's order. Later, we heard the curfew time has been changed. Along this process, right, soldiers were already shooting at our children at the toll gate. That was barbaric. The governor has security meeting every fortnight in the state. That is official. The GOC are there. All the military or personnel see with the governor fortnight on the security matters and issue in Lagos State. So the governor telling us that he was told they were shooting, right? They should have waited. They came down the road. Where is the road from their barracks? The closest barracks to toll gate should be Bonny Camp. I don't know if any other barracks along Lekki Ekpe, unless you get to Ekpe. Lives have been lost. Lagos State has 7 squadron of mobile policemen. Where were they? Where were they? People telling me army should use rubber bullets. Where does army use rubber bullets? Where in any republic, democratic republic, you call the soldiers out? The soldiers are not talking. The president has not made reference to it. This is a security matter. What they tell the government security officer, we play it down. Of course, we play it down.
Yeah, but let me add this, Mr. Bankantini, before I move on to Mr. Fabi. The army, you heard their comments yesterday about some of those materials being photoshopped. Look, I know people, yes, they heard it. Some didn't believe their ears, but they're also fundamental questions. So, but for those who thought that, wait a minute, in that president's speech, shouldn't he have made reference to the Lekki shooting, even if you don't fully subscribe to it, or even if we don't know the information the president has, shouldn't he, one way or the other, have made direct reference to what happened in Lekki?
I'm not holding brief for the president, but I'm glad you made reference to what that general said that could be Photoshop, right? The president was not in Lagos when this incident happened, right? Those who are in Lagos are giving very conflicting reports. And and the president even waiting 48 hours or thereabout to give a speech. Because a lot of people talking. So what is the report on Mr. President's table? Some people even claiming they might be fake police. Even our own national you said there might be fake armies. In the interview with the channel's guy on the telephone, you understand me? And the army has said it could be Photoshop. But the governor, can he tell Lagosian, did he get in touch with the Nigerian army or not? He sits every fortnight. This was a security issue. Was there a time? Because this is a democracy. We are accountable to our people. It is very clear. It is very, very clear. Everything, the coincidence was just too much. The night before, he didn't call the curfew, the light didn't go out. The soldiers didn't come out. There was no shooting. Now, the people you call are now, like you said, the powers beyond them. Why do you get them involved? In any democracy, Lagos is the melting pot. Let's set an example. All right. I heard is...
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Fabi. Look, yes, there are still unanswered questions. Yeah, the president has spoken. But then the thing is, yes, he's the president. He can't react the way everybody else is reacting. He's got access to information everybody else don't have. So he has to find a way to aggregate different views and speak to everyone, as it were, moving forward. But if he didn't, I mean, given that speech, the scenario in Lekki, but there are questions, huge questions are still unanswered about what really went down in Lekki. You've heard the comments that came through from the military. How should people be internalized, or how do you react and internalize those comments that came from the army about what happened in Lekki?
Well, thank you very much. It is quite unfortunate. You see, leadership requires certain fundamentals. It requires you being a responsibility. It requires here to be high intellect. And again, it requires your ability to manage people's affairs as a leader. And sincerely, all these things are lacking in the management of all this. And I'm not surprised, because we've seen in the past how lots of crises, including COVID, were managed by this government. And I don't feel sorry for saying the Nigerians know the truth. Now, Lagos State Governor, as I know, with due respect to him, appeared helpless, appeared confused, because of you can see the early statement he made before now coming back to say some other statement. At some point, even though I don't want to leave on some of the reports of the social media, we were told that Army said it was fake, it was this and that. That is not how it's supposed to be. I remember in America in 2000, when there was this, what is it called, this terrorist attack on 2011. What they did, they went back, they looked at their security architecture and rebranded it and make it work. So I think Nigeria needs to do that. As far as I know, it goes beyond Mr. President saying you protesters should leave the streets. What the question should be, because I know, a lot of Nigerians knows that those who are vandalizing national assets and other assets across the state are not the real protesters. The real protesters are not people vandalizing this. So it would be good for Mr. President to help us get rid of all these hoodlums that are killing people, that are attacking people, that are destroying properties and all that. Get them off the streets. Then we can now see how then we can now have a way to talk to the youth to say, okay, leave the street. The protesters are not the ones doing all this, causing all this vandalism. They are not. So as far as I know, the statement of the army is not encouraging. As far as I know, it does not give me the kind of information I would have wanted them to do. They have their intelligence units, that would have immediately swung into action. And 2-3 days, 72 hours, it took them all that time before they can come out and be giving us all these excuses. As far as I know, as a Nigerian, I don't buy into that. So for me, the government needs to do more. And Mr. President needs to wake up to his responsibility. We have a leader. We have leaders in Nigeria today who abdicate responsibility. When something happens, they quickly pass it to their subordinate or pass it to the under them. And that's exactly what Mr. President has done in this matter. Passing this thing to state, yes, a lot of things are happening in the state. But the federal government should have done better. When these guys came up with their 5 demands, the government should have come up with feasible action, feasible activities that will instill the confidence and bring the confidence and the trust of these guys back. But it never happened. It goes beyond just say we have disbanded SARS. SARS is just a smaller unit of the Nigerian police. And I sympathize with Nigerian police because we have to give it to them. They are not having the best of time. They have their frustrations. It's a public knowledge that they're not being taken care of by successive governments. Their welfare, everything about them is zero. So the government should have taken a proactive action, measures to ensure that all these things and the youth will see all these things and be confident that the government is doing something. But
all right, Mr. Fabi, we'll come back to this in just a moment. Pardon me. We need to go to break.
No.
But we'll come back and see, look, what does this then mean to the protesters, to everybody moving forward? Join us again. Welcome back. Different schools of thought on this one, Mr. Bank Anthony. There are those who believe, yes, the president's speech is welcome, or others believe, well, it's a temporary respite, but it's not over, because they thought that he left out some very key things, so much unanswered questions, and then it's to them, they think this is tantamount to postponing the evil day. Do you share, what's your impression of that?
Well, now on the world stage, I saw on CNN last night, I'm on par with our own false guy, and it has shown on it's a bad life. But the point is that the president, nothing will be good enough. We will always ask for more. We are libertarians. There is nothing wrong about that. But I don't want us to start condemning at this point in time the president's speech. Clearly, what my brother said in Abuja, what visible do you want to see now? What exactly can happen now? Is he a magician? He has directed judicial inquiry to be set up. Lagos State, with due respect, has done that with a very fine job. Justice Okwuobi retired, and Adegoluwa on board. And the kids, right? This will not deter them from asking for what they believe is right. Like you said, this is not an analog age anymore. They're organized, they will do what they have to do, and they've made a very bold statement, and they keep on doing that. And one thing I must say very clear here is that going forward, I mean, in Lagos, which is the melting pot, the damage, the colossal damage done in Lagos is sad, it is terrible. And how did this happen? We need to ask ourselves and tell ourselves some own truth. We need to, because at the end of the day, Lagosians will pay for it. Clearly, they will pay for it, right? And so, now, where are we?
But Mr. Bankantini, moving forward now, with all of this that played out, I mean, initially we saw that the governors were not all together concerning the decision that was taken about SARS. Now, if some governors then went ahead and declared curfew in their states, and then it came across as though they had their hands tied, that there were superior powers that the reason why governors couldn't do certain things, because if soldiers were on the road, if security of lives and property were not protected, is it time for them to then say, look, in order for us to be able to perform our functions, we need to go back to the center or to the National Assembly, identify the problems that came up now, whether or not it's going to be, look, in form of state police or whatever it is, because it appeared that though some governors were just helpless. How did hoodlums get on the streets and then they had a free reign?
See, Shebali, let me mention Nicholas, it's so sad that I don't know what I would call a curfew. Curfew declared 12 hours. After 12 hours of curfew, Lagos was on fire. We were supposed to be on curfew. I believe the Commissioner of Police failed us in Lagos. He had 7 Mopo squadron in Lagos. We are calling ourselves a republic now. Do we need to run to the soldiers all the time? We have 7 Mopo units in Lagos. And an average of this unit has about 600 men. Where are they? I remember even before this happened, the IG of police said he's mobilizing Mopo police out to every state. Why can't the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State take charge and direct his unit accordingly? How long are we going to go into military and telling them to come to our aid? Because this is what is happening now. You call a curfew in Lagos, same day, Lagos City Hall was bombed, right? MPA was bombed. Upper Palace ransacked. Malls were bought during the day, not at the night. And there's also the curfew. Where are the MOPO units in the state? I want to tell Mr. Governor, the security team has failed you. And I know how well they take your security team. The security force we know in Nigeria is not even accountable, and bulk of it goes to the security agency. What have they done with it? Look at what happened after the killing. 3 hours after the killing, lives were still lost, millions of properties and businesses were set ablaze.
Well, you know, the thing about this now, Mr. Fabi, anyway, who knows? Because all of these businesses, business concerns of private citizens that have been affected, well, it won't be a bad idea for the states in question to do something about compensation or something, because at the end of the day, they still will go back to them for taxes and all whatnot. But moving forward, in terms of the fundamental questions, unanswered questions about this one, how do you think the youth will accept this now? Because some will say, does that then mean that youths or people who are genuine can't come out to protest against what they don't like tomorrow without fear of who knows if hoodlums, whether they send them to infiltrate their ranks or not, will get in there and then the same kind of scenario play out? And this may be an excuse that people will bring in time and again to cow people who ordinarily are genuine. According to the law, you can protest peacefully. How do we avoid that?
Well, number one, it's about the ability of the government and the youth on the other side to come to the negotiation table and come up with far-reaching decisions. That negotiation is very, very key. And then in the process of negotiations, most especially the government must be very, very sincere in their negotiation. And then they must be ready, you know, to take up responsibilities. Secondly, we have a very skilled system, as you all know, and then until when this skilled system is corrected, I think we'll continue to have this problem. This constitution, as we currently run, will never give us peace, will never give us unity. We have to really look into it, and that's why I dot my cap for the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who kept talking about restructuring, and I'm happy that a number of people in the country are now seeing the need for this restructuring. We have to do it. We have to do it. And I hope Mr. President will listen to all this voice of reasoning and do what is the things that are needful. Beyond that, moving forward, the guys that are causing violence, that are destroying properties, are not the real protesters. And then for the real protesters have put forward their demand. This is the first time our youth in this country are coming up with, you know, with positions, and the government should at least respect them by listening to them and do, you know, take up all these things. Then beyond that, we need justice for all these people that were killed. Is important. As long as the government fails or is unable to get justice for these people, to conduct proper investigation into what happened, why this killing has to happen, who are involved, who did what, and brought to book, this may not abate. The youth are ready to leave the street as long as the government lives up to its responsibility and attend to some. The government may not necessarily, you know, take all the requests of the youth, but those ones that are fundamental, especially those ones that are hanging fruit, we need to see there are physical things that can be done. Roll out your statistics. Let us know what you have done. Who are you interrogating right now? Who have been prosecuted? These are the things that can instill confidence. We need more of statements from leaders and action from government that will aid our nation building. Is important, because the speech of yesterday did not even engender the nation building. So we should forget about that. Mr. President should learn to come up with things that can engender this nation building. His advisors should do well by letting him know the true position of things, because I see this as lacking in what we are going through now as a nation.
We need to anchor at that point. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Dimeji Fabi, a member of the PDP, as well as Mr. Tunde Bank Anthony, member of Isale Co-Descendant Union of Lagos, and also member of the APC. We will be back in a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. It's still on the president's speech. We've got two gentlemen joining us again this time. We've got Mr. Dennis Amakre, who is a former assistant director with the SSS, joins us from Port Harcourt. We also do have Chief John Wodo, who is the President General of Ahaneze Ndigbo and former Minister of Information. Good morning, sir, and thank you both for joining us today on the program. Let me start with you, Mr. Amakre. Well, having listened to the NSA, Mr. Manguno, many expected perhaps more of that from as they looked forward to the president's speech in terms of the tonality. But they got a speech, but they say we didn't get the kind of speech we want or we were looking at to get, which raises questions as to what was the mindset behind this speech? Was it a military and the democratic one? What percentage? Because, I mean, that was the NSA. You expect a security mindset. But the speech they got, they thought, whoa, this had a lot more of veiled threat in this speech. And they thought, big question mark. What do you think of the speech?
I think we've gone through this many, many times. The NSA should have addressed it the way that it should be. We've always talked about the military incursion into internal security. And I think the military themselves should start working towards, their image. Because anytime they bring out themselves, it's a problem. Why not separate them properly? And then, of course, there are laws. When we looked at even the United States, the military cannot just come into internal security. There are laws, Insurrection Act that have been passed before the president is empowered to even call them in. So the speech is basically designed to, placate the public, because a lot of people died. A lot of people died, and the parents are all expectant to see what the president will say to them. The military coming out to say that it might be a photoshopping or they are going to investigate, I think it's too late. Because if somebody is actually wearing a military uniform and then hanging around somewhere or doing certain things, we expect that the military down the street should have mobilized some people and gone down there to find out who is doing this thing. It is not a matter of going back to investigate anymore. I was seeing about 7.62 rifle cartridge that were picked at that scene. Nobody uses that, not even AK-47. So those are military grade ammo. So I think there is a lot to do about it. Let's not whitewash this, because this is rubbing off on the soul of this country.
Well, Chief Wodo, the president's speech did equally mention some of the unfortunate incidents that played out in Lagos, including that of the Oba's Palace. But yes, you've been quoted in the dailies about some of those as well. But give us your impression about that speech. How does it resonate with you in context of those areas which you spoke about previously?
I felt quite disappointed with that speech. The country is very aggrieved, extremely aggrieved. The youths are the moral conscience of a nation. They are all we work for. They represent our future. They are the tabula rasa, the clean slate on which you build the future of a society. Each one of us, when we were young, we dared government about things that were not well in the society. General Babangida, Major General Barry himself, as a soldier, as a young man, led coups in this country because he was outraged by the corruption and the social perversions in our society. What these children are doing are no different from what he did when he was much younger. And the children are a barometer for us to gauge how well we are doing in society. I expected his speech to be more paternal, to be more understanding of the ingredients of frustration in the minds of these people. And this time around, didn't just have youths who were unemployed, who were uneducated, We had them from all cadre of professions in our country. And they did so well in the early stages of their protests to be civil, to be well-behaved, to be articulate and reasonable. Now, the fact that miscreants got on the way is also a failure of our security. How many times shall we talk about this? How much money do we vote to security? How much is security accountable for how it spends that money? That's part of the reason that these children are in the streets. In every other country of the magnitude of our economic potential, in all those streets, there were miscreants. There will be cameras. We would have had the pictures of those who infiltrated the genuine youths and who were out for vandalization. They would have all been picked up now. They would have all been in court. You don't tell us you arrested people, but nobody knows where they are being charged. Nobody knows the offenses that are charged for.
But Chief, you know, yes, you spoke about the young people who they turned out initially they were genuine in the way they conducted themselves as it went on. But the protests, what we saw in Iju-Ishaga area of Lagos, people trying to talk ethnic tribes, nationalities against themselves, the scenario in Oba's Palace also degenerating. Now, doesn't this speech where he now says, look, security agencies have got to get back immediately. Now, to that extent, isn't that good to hear? Because any further attempts for people who try to, you know, get ethnicities against them, turn ethnicity against themselves, wouldn't this in any way help in calming frayed nerves?
Well, let me just address the issue of ethnicity. There is a group called Apopo Oduduwa ACOA, which went online and accused the Igbos of being responsible for some of the outrages that occurred in Lagos. And there have been a lot of spiral revenges, especially in Igbo-owned shops in Adenero Bunsaya, and threats of further violence against Igbos in Lagos. I've had discussions with Chief Adebanjo and Yinka Odumakin, and I'm very happy that Afenifere has made this speech, issued a release signed by Adeferati, and the release has given us reassurance that the Yoruba leadership has not bought the propaganda that Igbos were responsible for some of this destruction. Here again is an attempt by a group of people to capsize the aims and objectives and such protest and to infuse some kind of tribal insinuations and make people of different ethnic origins in the country to begin to have a feud that never existed. In Abuja, you could see how car garages of Igbos were burnt with reckless abandon and how some Muslim fundamentalists came in with machetes and what have you, and none was arrested. The point I'm making is that there is a failure of security. If miscreants invaded this protest, they ought to be arrested, they ought to be prosecuted. And our security has capacity for gathering intelligence of their preparation and of monitoring their intervention discreetly in order to be able to arrest them with ease. I'm sure that Dennis understands what I'm talking about. So the speech from a head of state who's been in the military, who's had the best world-class military training, did not give me enough justification that it was intended to assuage our anxieties about the extant issues that are impacting on this unrest.
Okay, Chief, let me bring in Mr. Makri back on this, because the security agencies, sometimes you wonder, are they really between the rock and the hard place, or they're just doing what the authorities require them to do? Because the populace, to them, it appears as though it's us and them. It appears as though security agencies are out there to protect the political class. And then the images that we saw as a result of this protest is not what should be in any society where policemen. We saw mob action against policemen who are supposed to be protecting us from even from ourselves. But look, where did we even get this wrong? How do we correct some of these things? Is it that the mindsets of the police, do we need to change the laws in terms of their conduct? How do we get this sorted and moving forward?
You can see that the protest was actually invaded by miscreants. In fact, the president was talking about it, that those people who are out there to, infiltrate the ranks of the protesters. But this is also a failure whereby, you see, there is this protest procedure where you have the police stay around. I saw even some policemen who were sitting down in their cars, and the protesters were giving them food, drinks, and everything, But where did we go wrong? Where these infiltrators came in and then started destroying things. I saw videos of miscreants breaking down street lights. And what does that mean? Are they part of the protesters? I don't think so. And then why are they not arrested? Because we just can't allow this to happen. Maybe we just have to look at the structure again. The police itself have to be restructured. Because what is all this all about is because people feel that the police has never been the friends of Nigerians. When they were created to take care of the colonialists, and now we are back to the new orgas who are the politicians. And of course, you have a whole unit, the Mopol in this country is dedicated to escorting politicians, local government chairmen, when they are supposed to be out there doing their work. I'm very happy that the IGP has withdrawn them.
Yeah,
but they are supposed to.
So, but Mr. Makwe, there are some issues that played out here, because when the protest started, I mean, the way it went about, many thought, okay.
Insecurity, we are giving prominence there. But today, you see the recruitment pattern. You see how people are recruited without recourse to what they scored in the examinations. The quality of management is a matter of patronage of ethnic origins. Look at our admission into federal secondary schools and universities. Look at the quota system that has completely erased competence and standards in our examinations. This is what is playing out here. So if we restructure, every region will bring out its best. If they have to donate people to national structures, they will donate the best they have to national structures. And we will be in the international competition.
All right, Mr. Makwe, what do you think?
Well, I think we have to go back to basics. We have to go back to basics and then, of course, reorient our people to be patriotic. Because right now, the country is so divided among so many fault lines, tribalistic situation, ethnicity, nepotism, and all the rest. And I remember very well when I joined the NSO at that time, we were all, the same number of people were employed from each state of the Federation. And today we remain brothers and sisters. And then, of course, we never saw ourselves as Hausa, Nupe, Igbo, or Kalabari, But the thing is that today, the caution, I think, in a way, politics has come into the whole play, whereby people don't see themselves as
How do we get security agencies off the hands in terms of using security agencies as pawns? How do we stop politicians from turning them against the citizens?
The only way we can do that is to allow the security agencies, including the police, to be independent. If you go to Decree 19, the one that formed the SSS, you will find out that at the end of the objectives, it is made to be under the presidency. Any other, duties that the president might order. That's why you have it as Department of State Services. It's a department of the presidency.
Okay.
The police is the same.
Let me wind down.
Chief said, just like Chief said, if you go down to state policing, the people will vote in the police chiefs.
Let me ask you,
appointing them.
As we close on this one, as a former intelligence person, I mean, you still have all the training, even though you left the service. What do you see happening with the, albeit peaceful protesters, those who were well-intended, put differently, with the protests, in light of the president's speech?
I think the president supports it. And of course, the protests have started. At the end of the day, from all the protests I've seen, including labor protests, they all end up on the table, where people have to sit down and dialogue and agree on something. Right now we have a group, you say there are no leaders, but, we're having objectives. So let them come, get themselves together. The protesters should get themselves together. And then, of course, government should be able to set up structures where they could have a fusion in deciding the future that we go to.
All right, then. But Mr. Makri, we also remember that the president did welcome the protesters. He did say he accepted the demands in the first instance, the 5 points. As we move forward, SARS was disbanded until Lekki happened. We're not saying that the same thing will happen, but it's just there. Who knows?
As accepted, but we should have some factual things happening. Something happen. Yeah.
All right, then. Mr. Dennis Amakwe, former Assistant Director with the SSS, as well as Chief John Modo, President General of Ahanese Ndibo, and former Minister of Information. Thank you, gentlemen, for talking to us today. Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed. It's a day to review the president's speech, and we've got Babajide Ogunsanwo joining us next on this one. Excuse me. Well, Jide, yes, you've looked at the speech. You didn't need to calculate too much because it was clear how long this speech took. But in terms of the content, what stood out for you?
Chamberlain, good morning. I would like to start with the summary of the speech. In the days that we've seen the president, I'll summarize the youth have been speaking, and for me, their speech to the president has been, Mr. President, you are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. In this speech, the president, I'll summarize it as the president is replying to the youth, saying, youths, you are sitting on melting ice. Chamberlain, there are three ways we could look at this speech. The first is we could look at this speech and compare it to the president's speeches during COVID-19. That's the first thing I'd like to do. The second is then look at the content of the speech. And third and final is to look at the president's online communication. So before we go into yesterday's speech, I'd like us to remember what happened during COVID-19. The president gave three speeches. His first speech was on the 29th of March. His second speech was on the 13th of April, and then he gave a third speech on the 27th of April. In these three speeches, the first time the president spoke about COVID-19, he gave that speech standing. The second time he gave the second speech standing, and the third time when things were a bit more stable, he gave his third speech on the 27th of April, sitting down. Each of the three speeches the president gave during the COVID-19 season, they were for 19 minutes. So we saw the president gave three different speeches, each that lasted 19 minutes. So that's what happened in that tense period when the coronavirus started. Yesterday, the president gave a speech sitting down. And this speech, not unlike the 19-minute speeches he gave during the COVID-19 period, this speech was just 11 minutes. And so some could summarize this speech as the president, relative to the COVID-19 period, is more comfortable about handling the protest, and he didn't really have much to say. So that is the speech. But there are some 7 top things that struck out in this speech for those that didn't listen to it, or for those that listened to it and were looking for how do we summarize this speech? And that's what I will also now want us to look at next, which is what are the top 7 most significant parts in this speech?
Yeah.
And if we focus on those top 7 things, the first is the president clearly made it clear that this government isn't weak. If you look at that paragraph where he talked about the promptness at which the government had acted seems to have been misconstrued as a sign of weakness because they are taking a decision promptly. And he made it clear that this government isn't weak. So that's the first of the 7 most important quotes in the speech. He had clearly said this government isn't weak. Now, some have talked about the president not showing empathy or showing emotions, but I think there was a paragraph that clearly showed the president's annoyance, and that's when he had talked about, on approving the termination of SARS, I already made it clear that it was in line with our commitment to the implementation of extensive police reforms. That phrase, I already made it clear, allows us to infer that either the president or the president's handlers or those that wrote the speech seem to show some level of annoyance or being upset. The third part of that, of the top 7 quotes, is the president has shown concerns, or from his perspective, that there's a lot of fake news going on, the spreading of deliberate falsehood and misinformation through the social media is another point that the president has shown concerns about, in particular that his government is oblivious to the plaints and plights of citizens as a ploy to mislead a lot of people. Now, the fourth part of the protest is the president is calling on protesters to stop protesting. That is also clear from what the president is saying. Is urging all youths to discontinue the street protest and asking them to constructively engage the government. So it is clear that the president is taking a position that the protest should now end. The fifth of the 7 most important phrases the president also talked about was there will be new salaries for policemen. What this means is that the 13 trillion naira budget that was presented to the National Assembly will most likely go through the door and the budget wouldn't be passed soon. The president has talked about that about the finalization of a new salary structure for members of the police. It is unlikely that the president will want to delay this salary structure into the 2022 budget, which means that the 2021 budget may not be approved soon, and we'll still see new numbers for the 2021 budget. Now, here's the 6th thing. The president is taking a position that the facts available should be made to all those that feel that there have been protests, but the government is saying that people, and especially the international community, that there is more behind the news. It talks about, we thank you and we urge you all to seek to know all the facts available before taking a position or rushing to make a judgment and hasty pronouncement. What this means is there is more going on than perhaps we all know. And so the president didn't mention Lekki, but from this phrase, it allows us to infer that there is more behind what is going on, or rather the president believes, or the president's handlers believe, that there is more behind the street protest and there's more behind what happened with the Lekki shooting, or for now, the president will say the alleged shooting at Lekki. And finally, the president talked about the government respects and will continue to respect all the democratic rights and civil liberties of the people. And so these are the top 7 things the president has talked about. Yes, there's no mention of Lekki, there's no mention of what had happened, and the president has made it clear that there's a lot of fake news going on and that there is more behind the news. And so, like I started, my summary is, My summary is the youth speech has been to the president that, Mr. President, you are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. And the president in this speech is telling the youths that, youths, you are sitting on melting ice. But here's what I also want to talk about.
Okay.
It's about the president's online communication, and we need to be able to look at the fact about that. Chamberlain, in March 2015, which was that month where the president was into his final month of campaign for the elections, March 2015, the evidence we have today is that during that month, the president tweeted 515 times. That is how important the campaign was to him. 515 times, 515 tweets in the month of March 2015. Chamberlain, here's what I mean. In that month of campaign, the president was tweeting at an average speed of 17 tweets per month. In October this month, which we are in, the president has only tweeted 113 times, which is just an average of 3 tweets, an average of 4 to 5 tweets a day. And so what we see is that in terms of online communication, which is where a lot of youths are, there's a significant difference between candidate Muhammadu Buhari of March 2015 and President Muhammadu Buhari of October 2020. This means that it is either...
Okay. Could we be seeing the principle of the law of aerodynamics in play?
Maybe, right? I'm not too... I'm a bit obsolete and still on physics, but the statistics and the facts shows that it's either way, especially when it comes to online communication, which is where a lot of the youths are tweeting and posting at. We've seen a significant difference from candidate Muhammadu Buhari of March 2015 and President Muhammadu Buhari of October 2020. So it's either the president's handlers are letting him down, or there is just not enough to say.
Well. So there you go. Thank you very much indeed, Jide Ogunso, our data and information analyst with those perspectives. All right. So yeah, we're supposed to just go ahead and get to the streets of Abuja with our man Lucky. So do we have him now or when? We'll have to check with that and find out if we go. So yes, we do have Lucky in Abuja, on the streets of Abuja, the day after the president's speech. Good morning, Lucky. What is the mood now where you are?
Morning. Yeah, we are at Gudu Market right now, and the situation is calm. There was serious apprehension here yesterday when the traders took up arms to defend the market. Policemen came, security operatives, NSCDC, soldiers came, and peace was restored. And with me this morning, I have the chairman of the Gudu Traders Market. Mr. Chairman, can you tell us your full names and your designation?
Good morning, all. My name is Ambassador Dr. Bont Nnamani, Chairman Gudu Amalgamated Traders Association.
So what is the situation right now compared to what happened yesterday?
For sure, at least we thank God for the grace He has given to us. The situation is calm now. Everybody is going his normal business. Both the banks, everyone is now functioning well. So we are looking forward that both the media, the arms, that is the police, the military, they are going to help because still there is still apprehension that they are going to attack after mosque based on the report we are getting. So, but the basic issue is that I always tell my people, you don't need to fight where you are earning your living. But if that fight comes, you don't need to run away. You must defend it. So basically, we are going to have meeting with those traders, both the Hausa traders that are around us, to talk to them. 2 days ago, we talked to them. We need peace within the environment. We don't need any problem. And once you are doing your business, we don't have any issue with you. Both the Okada people that are within these areas, we talk to them. So for sure, as far as we are concerned now, there's no problem. So the police, the army, they are around. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the chairman of the Gudu Amalgamated Traders Association here in Gudu. We've gone around town and everywhere is calm at the moment. The situation is calm, businesses have reopened, but one thing we noticed in the course of our roving is that banks in Abuja are yet to open for business. I can confirm that.
All right,
the situation at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Lucky. We appreciate your reporting. Well, let's all equally just go ahead and take a look at some of your responses, your tweets, and the emails. We've got this first tweet from Shagun. Well, he says, if the Nigerian army denied Lekki shooting, the world saw that the Lagos State governor visited those with gunshots in the hospital as a result of Lekki shooting. So, who shot those youths? And then you got Cephas, who tweets saying, shows you the problem of our nation. If we're ever a nation, there's no unity. We lack principles and virtues. He says some of the guests we brought earlier were talking about the North and the South thing. Instead of standing up for the truth and justice, he says, trust me, the youths in the North will be fed up and they will react. Dr. Bomosa says, yesterday's presidential speech was a tacit gauge of the limits of the federal government's engagement with leadership. The timing and content, he says, very poor. Look at some emails coming through now. Benga says, SARS brutality is a reflection of deterioration in every sector of the Nigerian economy. The country needs a total reform. The best the president can do now is to address the country, well, he's done that, and declare and implement a total reform in all economic sectors, including the presidency, legislative, judiciary, agriculture, finance, works, health. I mean, all sectors. The whole system, he says, needs some change. Well, Benga, that is from Benga. But this one from Temitokwe says, look, he knows the miscreants, hoodlums, and youths may not be visible in all platforms, including TV. The best way to get across to them may be through, he says, well, radio stations, local governments, the members of the House of Reps, basically saying, take advantage of all other platforms. And then Patrick says, I did not expect anything serious from the president's speech. It's quite clear now that the president's, beginning from 2015, he says, it appears not to be sensitive to the ethnic diversity of the nation. SARS operations in the North is limited compared to the South. All service chiefs, well, not all of them, he says from the North, but he says a lot from this government do not give hope of effective state management, and the situation is fast degenerating. Well, we do appreciate all your messages as well. We hope that you will keep them coming through. Well, that is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week. I'm Chamberlain. Also, have a good week.